Hello and welcome to the latest instalment of GBN America with me, Patrick Christys, and goodness gracious me, we have got a heck of a lot to go at today. I'm going to be joined by Phil Kerpen, who's the president of American Commitment. He's also a columnist for Fox News Opinion, chairman as well of the Internet Freedom Coalition and author of the 2011 book, Democracy Denied. Phil, great to have you on the show. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Yeah, very, very well, thank you. Now, I think we should probably start by talking about Robert Kennedy Jr., shouldn't we, really? And this is quite a fascinating situation that has happened. So he's come out and he's endorsed Trump, but it's not quite as simple as that, is it? Because I believe he is still going to be standing, but just in places where there's a chance that he could do a bit of damage to Kamala. Would you mind just filling us in on exactly what's going on here?
Well, there's some states where it's too late to withdraw from the ballot. There's some states where it's not too late. But the general strategy, as I understand it, is in the places where he and the Trump campaign working together believe that being on the ballot will be more helpful than harmful to Trump, he intends to stay on the ballot. In places where he thinks he may draw more votes away from Trump, he's going to remove himself if possible. So he's going to essentially cooperate to the maximum extent possible to help the Trump campaign.
OK, so those are the facts as we understand them. I also understand that his own family aren't particularly happy about it. Didn't they all co-sign a letter saying that, well, not quite disowning him, but not far off?
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Basically, the rest of the Kennedy clan disowned him and said, we're still great, loyal Democrats, and we love Kamala Harris, and we don't know what's wrong with our brother or uncle, whatever the relation might be. But the interesting thing to me is it's really RFK, I think, who in his endorsement and in the specifics and the explanation of why he's supporting President Trump carries on the tradition of his father, Robert Kennedy Sr., and of his uncle, John F. Kennedy, President John F. Kennedy, who really were pro-free market, pro-tax cut, pro-civil liberty, anti-communist Democrats. And the Democratic Party has moved so far away from that now that you have someone who's really, I think, following in the tradition of his father and his uncle, who's completely unwelcome and was really excluded from the primaries and now has come out and said he's going to endorse the Republicans. So the Kennedy clan certainly has broken with him and said they're still Democrats, but I think he's the one who's more in line with the tradition of his most famous family members.
Yeah, now look, we'll get into a little bit about exactly what he stands for, and I think you make a fantastic point there about how far the Democrats have shifted, really, away from their roots and where Trump fits into all of that. But some people have accused RFK of being a little bit kooky. Some people have said, well, he's got some rather out-there views about vaccines, etc. But I actually think he's been quite unfairly treated here. Has he been smeared by a lot of the kind of left-wing pro-Democrat media?
Well, I think if you dig into his past and you go back years and years, you can find, various wacky statements and so forth. But if you look at what he actually said in that speech and what the central pillars of his campaign has been, I think they're broadly popular statements. The idea that there's undue corporate influence on government agencies like the FDA and the CDC and the NIH. I think supermajorities of Americans would agree with that and saw it vividly during COVID. And so I think that it's easy to dismiss him out of hand, say, oh, he's an anti-vaccine nut, he's against all vaccines, that kind of thing. You listen to what he's actually saying, and it's not that. What he's actually saying is, they were dishonest with us about the data, there was undue corporate influence, and I think that most people, when they listen to what he's actually saying, will nod along. They will not find him crazy.
No, indeed. I mean, that's the case with a lot of people, isn't it? Where the perception of them that's spouted out there by the media versus reality are often two very, very different things. But how much of a difference is it actually going to make, this endorsement for President Trump, really? I mean, I believe that his support was somewhere around the 5-6% mark. Do you think that is going to have a big impact? Does it make Trump's path to the White House that much easier?
Well, endorsements typically don't make a big difference, but this could be a very, very close election. And the last two elections were extraordinarily close, and they came down, to 10,000 votes in this state, 20,000 votes in that state. And if you have a similar extremely close election, then even 1 or 2% of the vote in some of these states could make the difference between winning and losing. And so I don't think he moves a lot of votes, but I think that if the election's close, it certainly could be a decisive factor.
Well, look, hey, any vote matters at the end of the day, especially if it is close. I mean, I've been gearing up for this question. I'll be honest with you, it's probably the one I'm most interested in, which is, does RFK being in the White House with Trump mean that we might now find out who killed JFK?
Wow, that's a tough question. I don't know. I mean, look, whatever's in those files and whatever's been redacted and so forth, we've had a lot of presidents since then. And I think a lot of them have said, hey, let's release everything. And then it's explained to them why maybe they shouldn't, and they decide not to. So for whatever reason, Trump didn't do it in his first term. Maybe it would be different this time around for, the factor that RFK might play in putting him into the White House. But, I think that it's hard for any of us to speculate because we don't know. We don't know what the government knows or doesn't know about that.
Do we have any idea what kind of job that RFK might actually get? I mean, I have heard some things online about, the idea that he might get a role with the CIA, etc. Is that wishful thinking because of exactly what I've just said to you there? That would probably set up some kind of epic revelation at some point, possibly about his uncle. But what kind of role could RFK have in a Trump administration?
Well, the rumor that I've been hearing is that he would be designated the United States representative to the World Health Organization, which I think would be fantastic for somebody who disagrees with basically everything they stand for to go there and wreck the place. So I like that idea, and that's the rumor I've been hearing.
No, that sounds fantastic, and that is actually something that I think would shake up the world, really. And you never know as well. If there is ever another pandemic around the corner, it might be quite nice to have somebody there who doesn't just toe the line. I mean, the WHO, how on earth it has that much credibility left, I'm not entirely sure. But let's just focus a little bit on Trump now, if that's okay, because, look, I, like many people on this side of the pond, when he got shot, I thought, well, that's it, he's won now. Definitely he's won. I saw the head-to-head he had with Biden before that, and I thought, again, look, there's realistically no way that Trump isn't going to be president again in a few months' time. And now with Kamala Harris in there, I mean, I still think she's absolutely incapable, and I don't really understand how on earth she's managed to get into this position of power, but it does just feel a little bit like the mood has changed. Do you think that Kamala Harris has made Trump's chance of victory a bit worse, or how do you see it going?
Well, I think that President Biden was an extraordinarily bad candidate and is an absentee president, which raises a lot of non-political questions about who's actually making the decisions running the country and, commanding the U.S. military at the moment. So I think that, Donald Trump was positioned to win almost by default after that debate where Biden's condition was exposed to the entire world so vividly. Obviously, there's a big difference between running against an opponent who's essentially a non-entity and running against an opponent who is a very active campaigning, sort of a political in a way, I think she's overperformed, actually. They've done a good job of kind of building her up into kind of an avatar of that people project whatever they want onto. And that, of course, is how Obama got elected. And they've got the whole media apparatus, including the entertainment apparatus, building her up. And so she's got an enormous number of advantages. Of course, the problem that she has is her actual record is extraordinarily bad. She ran the most left-wing campaign we've ever seen in this country last time around. Now she's having staffers disavow everything she ever said publicly in her last presidential campaign. And of course, she's hiding from the media. She's just trying to let them write wonderful things about her, but without actually speaking herself and risking saying something that would be damaging. And so everything is setting up for a very high-stakes debate on September 10th. If she passes that test, and she debated quite effectively against Mike Pence in the vice presidential debate last time, then this is going to be a very, very tight election. This will not be an election where Trump is running against essentially a non-entity. This will be an election where he's running against the entire media apparatus and the entertainment apparatus and the universities and the schools and all of these other institutions of power in our society. That's a very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, if it was Joe Biden, he would essentially be running against a carcass, okay? But now he has got that incredible, platform to run against. And what does that say? I mean this with absolute respect, by the way, genuinely. But what does that say about America, that you can almost have a puppet president there, someone like Kamala Harris, who's not got a good track record, whether it's in the past or literally what she's doing right now in terms of the border, etc. But there's this incredible deep state, it seems, that just keeps things going. And I wonder whether or not the American public just accept that, do they? A lot of them on the left, do they just accept that actually it's not really going to be Kamala Harris running the country? It's going to be this kind of invisible wall of people behind, though. Is that accurate to suggest?
Well, look, I mean, I think that if you're happy with the direction of the country right now, and you're happy with the last 3.5 years under sort of non-President Biden, then you're fine with Kamala Harris kind of notionally taking over, but the same staffers making the same decisions. And so to the extent that you've got whatever the percentage is, 35 or 40% of people who think things are good right now, they're fine with that, essentially. They're fine with the current arrangement with sort of a non-entity in the White House. So having another person take over with the same staffers, I think they're fine. The question is, what about the additional 10% that they need, 15% they need to get over the top and win a national election? Are they fine with it? Are they even aware that that's going on? And I think that's kind of the opportunity and the challenge for President Trump and his campaign to explain that you're going to have all the same crazy left-wing staffers, running things if Harris wins, that it's going to be a continuation of an arrangement that hasn't really served us very well.
Yeah, look, just one final one with you, if that's all right. Just returning to this kind of relationship now between Trump and Kennedy Jr. There are a couple of character traits that I would suggest are similar between the two of them, but I think it's also fair to say they've had a different past. And Kennedy's history of drug use apparently involved selling cocaine during his college years and all that. Now, hey, look, don't get me wrong, we've all done some stupid stuff at university or college, haven't we? And things do change and people do change. But does this actually show that maybe Trump is a little bit desperate here? That he's getting into bed with someone who maybe, has had a different past with him and not necessarily always shared the same values? What do you think?
Well, I think that'll certainly be the Democratic response, and the media response is, he's attracting other weirdos and kooks and nuts. And this is kind of the whole Tim Walz strategy of calling Trump weird constantly. But I think that Trump has a ready-made response to that, which is to say, he's building a big tent. And it's not just people who are ideologically right-wing or people who are just buttoned up in their own personal lives, but that he's welcoming anyone in who sort of supports what he's trying to do, which includes taking on a lot of these entrenched power structures, and that's as much a left-wing project as a right-wing project, and that's why he welcomes people like RFK and like Tulsi Gabbard to that, and I think we may see more Democratic supporters announced as well. And this is all about convincing the middle, which is a smaller and smaller portion of the electorate every election. And so everyone's kind of trying to figure out how do you talk to them. And I think what the Democrats shifted from was, basically this guy's Hitler to this guy's a weirdo. And instead of making over the top, trying to scare people claims, they're just trying to say, they're not cool. They're not like, they're kind of weird. And so to that extent, RFK does give them more ammunition for that strategy. But it also, I think, helps Trump make the pitch that, this is not a right-left thing. This is the insiders and the powerful against regular people. And that's a very powerful frame as well.
Yeah, look, lovely stuff. Thank you very much for your time today, Phil. Great to have you on the show. I do hope to talk to you again very, very soon as the presidential race hots up and we, gear up for what is undoubtedly going to be a very, very close-run thing. That is Philip Kerpen there. You will probably know as a columnist from Fox Opinion and also president of American Commitment. You take care. Thank you very much, Phil.
All right, have a good one.